In the early 90s, I worked in a mattress store in a small town in Georgia. When this gentleman walked in, he had on a plaid shirt, a bent bill baseball cap, cowboy boots, jeans, and a huge belt buckle with a Ku Klux Klan emblem on it. He told me that he needed to purchase a mattress for his daughter, and he and I discussed dad stuff as I showed him a few selections and ultimately wrote up the sale. When he pulled his pickup truck around to the front of the store, as I was loading it, he said to me, "You know, you've got to be the most intelligent color fella I ever talked to." And I said, "How many color fellas have you talked to?" And he said, "Good point." So I thanked him for the purchase, and I said, "Next time, we'll work on this." Tink, tink, and I hit his belt buckle. And he cracked up and got into his car and waved as he pulled through the parking lot. The dictionary tells us that relationships are how two or more concepts, beliefs, or people are connected. By treating that gentleman with respect and professionalism, we connected. And our time together was vastly different than what it could have been. So I wanted to share with you today my strategies for building relationships with people, a concept I call being engaged. Engaged is an acronym that I use as a mindset for dealing with other people, in the hopes that I may share something with you that you can implement today. Empathetic. Don't just listen, hear. Hearing someone goes beyond what they say verbally and includes things like body language, voice inflections, and the choice of words. I was flying back to Atlanta from LA, and the young lady who was sitting next to me was also traveling to Atlanta after visiting her parents following her first year at Georgia Tech. We were having a pleasant conversation, enjoying each other's company, until we hit turbulence. Her body language changed drastically, and she stopped talking. In fact, the captain came on and told the stewardesses to have a seat as well because we were going through a rough patch. Not knowing how long this was going to be, but acutely aware of the fact that we had at least 3.5 hours left to this flight, I put out my hand, which she grabbed without hesitation. She still didn't talk much and squeezed it pretty tight when we hit a few bumps. But you know, even when she had to get up, when she came back, she grabbed my hand. When we landed in Atlanta, she thanked me and exited the plane. When I was in baggage claim, collecting my luggage, there she was again. And she came up to me and gave me a huge hug and a smile, and then walked away. No words were necessary. Non-judgmental. Always be curious. My first retail job was in men's designer clothing. And one day this gentleman walks in and he is corporate down. I mean, a navy blue Brooks Brothers suit, white shirt, red power tie, about 6'4", everything you can imagine. And he told me that he was going to a dinner party and needed a new outfit. So as I watched the distress on his face as he tried to pick out an outfit, I said to him, "Have you had lunch yet?" He said, "No." I said, "Why don't you go have lunch, and when you come back, I'll have something for you." He said, "Okay, that's fine." So he comes back from lunch, and I have the outfit sitting there, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he looked at it again, and he looked at me. I said, "Yeah, I know. Just go try it on." So he goes into his dressing room and comes back out, and he's standing in the mirror, looking at himself, and he starts to smile. He says, "Man, my wife is never going to believe I picked this out." And that relationship went on for a few months. He would just come through, tell me where he was going, what the occasion was, throw me the platinum card, first time I've ever seen one of those. And I would pick out his outfits. One day, this extremely well-dressed woman walked in, and she said, I just had to meet the person that got my husband dressing so well. I've been trying to get him to go outside the box for the last 30 years, and he wouldn't do it. And she offered me a $100 tip, which I took. But because I was curious as to whether he would venture outside of his corporate look, we connected. Growing. Always seek knowledge. One morning, my son was getting ready for school, and he asked me, Dad, can you juggle? And I said, no. Kissed him on the forehead, shoot him out to the bus. But what he didn't know is that it was my day off. So for the next 4 hours, I watched videos on how to juggle. And I spent 2 hours practicing. So when he got home from school that afternoon, guess what? The greatest thing about always seeking knowledge is that you open your mind. And when your mind is open to new concepts, it's open to meeting new people. It's open to receiving things that are different than what you see. Accountable. Always have goals. If you're truly seeking knowledge, it's only natural that you'll have goals. But for this context, I want you to think about goals that help you build better relationships. So if you're a small business owner and you don't like networking, have a goal of going to one network meeting every month and coming home with 10 business cards from people you don't know. If you're a person who doesn't like speaking in front of people, join Toastmasters. With a goal of becoming a TEDx speaker. But one of the sure ways for you to accomplish your goals is to have an accountability partner. Someone whose opinion matters to you, but more importantly, won't let you off the hook if your goal is a little harder than you thought. Guiding. Always be willing to show the way. I was in a shoe store with my daughter shopping for back to school when this woman walked up to me and she said, "Excuse me, sir, does this shoe come in black?" I said, "Good question. Let's go take a look." So we walk over to the direction I saw her come from, and we're going through the stacks, and I said, "Oh, here you go, black." And she said, "That's an 8. I wear a 9. I said, "Oh, sorry." So I go back over, black, 9. The woman with her said, "You do know he doesn't work here, right?" And she said, "You don't?" I said, "No." She said, "So why'd you help?" I said, "Because you asked and I could." Empowering. Use your gifts to improve the lives of others. I firmly believe that we all are given gifts, not to be confused with talents. Talents are things that you acquire and hone. Gifts are given. They're inside you already. But more importantly, they're not for you. When I was in college, I lived in an apartment, and there was a shuttle that ran over to campus. And so one morning I was walking to the bus stop, and there was a gentleman sitting there, and he was, rather dirty, and his clothes were kind of disheveled, and his face was dirty. And he asked me if I had some spare change. I am what they call a serial entrepreneur. I had my first side gig when I was 9. I worked every summer since 13, used to go down and work on my grandfather's farm. So as you can imagine, instead of spare change, he got a lecture. So he sat there and listened to this 18-year-old kid telling him that he needs to get up and go get a job. And so this went on a couple of times, so much so that when he saw me coming, he would just cross the street. So one morning I come out there and he's about to cross the street and I said, hey, hold on a second, come here. So he walks over. I said, I have something for you. He said, yeah, what's that? He said, a broom? I said, yeah, a broom. See that restaurant right there? I work there every night from 10 p to 2 a. And I bet you, if you told my store manager that you'd sweep his whole parking lot for $10, he'd let you. He said, you think so? I said, yeah, I'll even give you his name. So fast forward a couple of months, I see him again. And boy, he's standing there waiting for me to come. And I get there and he's all cleaned up and he had on work clothes. If for you, those of you who are my age, he had on Dickies, right? Face clean, hair combed, looking great. He said, not only do I sweep the parking lot where you work, because I see you in there, but every business on this side of the street and every business on that side of the street. How cool is that? Dedicated. Never start something that doesn't get your full attention. By that, what I mean is if you promise someone that you're going to do something, then you owe it to them to give them your full enthusiasm, resources, time, and attitude. Don't act like you're doing them a favor. Don't do it because you're obligated or afraid of what they're going to say if you say no. When I first moved to Ocala, I lived in an apartment building. And one morning I was walking out of the apartment building and there was a moving van there. And there was a gentleman and his girlfriend carrying a sofa off the back. The guy was a good size, maybe my height. But the young lady was petite and struggling. So as I walked over, I said, can I give you a hand? He said, no, we're good. And when I looked at her, she said, yes. So I grabbed her side and I looked at the guy and I said, so where we're headed? He said, 3rd floor. And I said, of course. Mind you, this apartment building did not have an elevator. Oh no, what fun would that be? And it didn't have a landing where you go up the stairs, turn, and go up the next. Oh, no. So what it was, we have to go halfway up, tilt the sofa over the first rail, and then the second rail, he had to pivot it around, had to go up and get it, and then go up to the next. 6 times to the 3rd floor. When I got there, they tried to give me a tip, which I did not take. But what was fun was that from that point forward, every time I saw them, we spoke and had a great conversation. If someone left a package at my door, she left a note that said, come upstairs and get it. She worked in a local restaurant, so we used to always chit-chat whenever I saw them. I could have easily said, when he said that he was on the 3rd floor, I said, I would help you, but man, my arthritis. But since I made that promise to him, I owed it to him to complete it. So in closing, I'd like you to imagine an engaged world. A world where we all understand that we are connected. We are our brother's keeper. A world where we take the time to get to know somebody before we have an opinion based on what they wear or what they look like. A world where we take the time to make a better me so that I can pour into the lives of others. A world where we understand that better relationships equal a better life. Thank you.